All right, guys, so the second Amazon labor union election failed. They did not vote to unionize. Now, I warned you guys in advance. It may happen that they don't win, but it's okay. Starbucks has had a phenomenally high success rate with unionizing their stores, but they have had some losses. They have. And that's just par for the course. You win some, you lose some. This is what happens in the real world. This is what happens when you're an adult trying to do adult things. It is what it is, but you regroup, you lick your wounds. I'm an idiot. And then you hit back twice as hard. And that's exactly what Christian Small said he was going to do. And this is not something that should, make people shy away from the broader fight, because we've seen more wins on this front than in anything else politically. So it's a wonderful thing. Now, here we have a case study QB clip from CNBC. And this guy's the worst. Joe Kiernan, I think his name is. They're going to talk about what happened with the Amazon labor union here. I'm going to play the beginning of this clip for you, and then the middle's just fluff, and then I'll skip to the end and play the end for you. There's a number of things here that catch my eye. Let's listen.
Meantime, employees at an Amazon warehouse on Staten Island rejected a union effort this 1 month after that nearby fulfillment center became the first in the country to vote to unionize. The tally was 618 votes against to 380 in favor. Those results still need to be formally
618 against to 380 in favor. It hasn't been finalized yet. They're not going to make up that difference. But understand, they put the full court press on this, and they tried to smother this thing in the cradle. And with such intense union busting, and we covered a video on that, great video from More Perfect Union that showed all the ins and outs of it, it's still kind of impressive they got as many as they did, given the nature of this particular warehouse. So there are some positives to take away from it. There really are. I know it doesn't sound all that great, but given what they were up against, this one was, Christian worked at the other warehouse. So he knew a lot of people at the warehouse. He knew the internal politics, the internal, relationships, the cliques, the groups. And so he knew exactly what to do to make that one work. This one was a little different. It was a harder nut to crack. Now, but that's the thing, is this is complex. Like you gotta make the puzzle every time. You gotta crack the code every time. And they did everything they could, but like I said, they're gonna regroup and go back and fight again.
Certified by the NLRB, an attorney who has represented the Amazon labor union telling CNBC that it plans to challenge the outcome. So positive news in one case for Amazon, but maybe not so, because there'll be a continued debate.
Positive case for Amazon, he said. The company, for Jeff Bezos, not for the workers. Not for the workers. And one could argue the workers make Amazon. They are Amazon. So just note the framing there. This is CNBC, so of course you're going to get that corporate framing, but it is noteworthy.
About it.
I mean, the challenge is, this is another issue. If you looked at the vote, far more voted against it than for it, and far more people didn't vote than people who voted for it, too. Right. I think there are 1,600 or 1,700 employees there, and this is where it's going to come down to the line. It gets all of these national headlines. It's riding on a few hundred people. But again, apathy almost is the biggest vote in any of these situations. It's been time after time where almost more people don't vote than vote in some of these elections that they've got too.
Yeah, but I view the people who didn't vote as potential yes votes. You just got to reach out to them. You just got to talk to them. You just got to convince them. You just got to persuade them. You just got to tell them the facts, give them the arguments, talk about how a union can improve their lives. Talk about the difference of right-to-work states versus non-right-to-work states, so-called right-to-work. It's right-to-work for less. Talk about how union workers have better benefits, higher pay. So those people who didn't vote, I don't view that as an insurmountable roadblock. In fact, I view that positively. It would be way worse if way more people voted against it. The fact that some people sat out means there's potential to bring them in. All right, so let's jump ahead here.
Prevent the abuses that unions used to address are now illegal anyway. So now, once you get past that, you just deal with
first. Other companies didn't do this, so everybody got all of these benefits of the last 20 years. It's happened with a lot of companies, Andrew. That's why labor participate. That's why unions have fallen to below 10%.
There's a lot of codified laws that prevent the abuses that unions used to address are now illegal anyway. So
okay, I love how naive and stupid this is. This is so ignorant. The idea that it just naturally happened that unions went from about 35% of the private sector to now about 10% of the private sector. No, that was not natural. No, that was not organic. That was a concerted effort from the owner class. That's what it was. It started under Ronald Reagan. He ushered in trickle-down economics in the neoliberal era, and it was carried on by every president after him. There's been a war on organized labor. He fired the union workers at the airport, was it? He fired all of them. And, now you had a situation where even though we have labor laws on the books, they're ignored. There was no cop on the beat for the longest time. When you have an NLRB that is hostile to unions, as we have until very, very recently, in fact, under Biden it changed, but it was hostile to unions before that. It's not like even the laws on the books are being enforced. And that shouldn't be too hard to wrap your mind around. Look at our antitrust laws, like our anti-monopoly laws. They don't break up these monopolistic companies. They just exist, even though technically they could be broken up today or tomorrow. So, what a naive thing. He thinks it was like a natural occurrence. Like, unions just went from 35% to 10%. No, that was a concerted effort. That was union busters working overtime to make sure that we chip away over time. And that was unions also feeling like they had to go into a defensive posture. And they weren't going on the offense. They weren't expanding. So it's classic CNBC brain. Like, free market works, which is why union numbers have dropped significantly.
That now, once you get past that, you just deal with compensation and benefits, and companies are, if you have a better compensation and benefit plan, and it's still not a union, you don't have the union dues, and you don't have the political issues that go with a lot of times that go with look at the stigma of teachers unions at this point. It's almost
that's all right-wing tripe. That's all that is. They talk to most normal people, and they're like, yeah, teachers are great, and I'm happy they have a union. It helps them get better pay. On the right, just teachers unions are the biggest problem in America, bro. These overpaid teachers. If anything, they're underpaid. They're underpaid. This guy really is the worst. There was one other thing I wanted to respond to. Let me run that back a little bit.
Companies are, if you have a better compensation and benefit plan.
Right. So he's like, what he's saying is they're raising wages and benefits anyway, so that's even better than if you have a union and then the union gets you higher wages and benefits. That's the argument that he's making. Here's why that's total bullshit. A lot of these wage increases and benefit increases are happening because now there's murmurs about unionizing at various companies. So they are scared that the workers are going to unionize. They're like, no, don't unionize. Here, we'll increase your pay. And in the case of Howard Schultz, he's such a dingbat that he was like, I'll raise pay, but only for the non-union workers, which I don't even know if that's illegal. The NLRB might go after him for that. So they're clearly doing it under pressure. They're clearly doing it to try to thwart a union, because when you have a union, they can get even better pay. They can get even better benefits. Who said this? There was somebody who said this. Crystal and I had somebody on the podcast who's an expert in this stuff. And they said, when you have a union, here's the power of collective bargaining. You have a situation where the owner of the company, or owners, they have to buy peace. So basically, you're threatening, the business is just not going to run right. We will tank the business if you don't treat us right. All of us will walk out, and you'll have nobody to do the actual work. So, let's negotiate. And what ends up happening? What ends up happening is you get a much better balance where workers get treated much better. And it's not all a one-sided relationship where all the power rests with the owners. I mean, again, this stuff is relatively obvious, but this guy is just, he's got terminal CNBC brain.
And it's still not a union. You don't have the union dues, and you don't have the political issues that go with a lot of times that go with look at the stigma of teachers unions at this point. I mean, it's almost self-defeating sometimes. So,
those goddamn greedy teachers. Somebody needs to put them in line.
And there's a reason it is a free market, and it's down. Why is it declined from what was it 35% at one point? Now it's below 10%. That didn't happen because laws were passed and that people said you can't be in a union.
It certainly happened because of union busting. It certainly happened because of a concerted effort from the government and the owner class to crack down on unions. Absolute. The idea it's like a natural occurrence. The idea it's a natural occurrence is preposterous. I mean, you often hear arguments like this when it comes to trade too. Like, we just created these trade deals and, we lowered price for consumers. It's just natural. This is the way the market works. Nonsense. Who crafted those trade deals? Who made those trade deals? It was the corporations. It was elites working with the government who, by the way, they've bought. So the trade deals are crafted first and foremost with profit in mind. Crafted first and foremost with the well-being of the business owners in mind. They don't care about the workers. The workers barely had a seat at the table if they ever did in most of these negotiations. So that's why, for example, you had the absolute destruction of the Rust Belt. You used to have, great factory jobs. You get out of high school, get a factory job, make decent pay, raise a family on it. And then they decided, let's ship these jobs to Mexico. Or let's ship these jobs to China. Let's have some Bangladeshi teenager do this work for pennies on the dollar. And who cares if it destroys the workers? We don't care about their considerations. So this idea that it's just natural. It's just a natural thing. Like, this is just the market working and it's going to always lead to the best outcome. Nonsense. Capitalism involves little mini dictatorships. That's what a business is. Now, in many instances, like if you have a small business, oftentimes they act in a much more ethical fashion because maybe they have family members working for them or friends or whatever. And so they have, decent pay. They're reasonable with how they divvy stuff up, et cetera, et cetera. So it doesn't have to be, oppressive by its very nature. But especially when you scale up and you get big businesses and there's not even personal relationships involved, and it's just, the whole idea is just let's make more profit as much as possible and pad the bottom line. There's a disconnect, and the owner class acts as the dictators. And they have their managers right underneath them, and then under them are the workers, and it's like, they don't care that much about the workers, especially at places like Amazon. Like, these workers are interchangeable. They want to burn you out and then turn you over quickly because they don't want to have to pay you more if you stay with the company for a long time. So, God, again, this guy, it's so annoying. It's this idea of like, it's just this is the market. It's just natural, and it's always going to work out. It clearly is not working out. It very clearly is not working out for the overwhelming majority of Americans, which is why income inequality and wealth inequality has skyrocketed, and it's worse than during the Gilded Age.
It's the way it's happened, right?
I'm unclear about how this relates back to Howard Schultz.
Really? I just think I would think that Howard he's conflicted on this because normally he would.
So this is how dumb this guy is. He thinks because Howard Schultz is quote unquote progressive, he's conflicted about the union existing. Because obviously if you're progressive, you're pro-union. So, he doesn't know how to handle this the right way. He's not being tough enough on the unions. That's the gist of what he's saying. Howard Schultz is a notorious union buster. Howard Schultz was saying an outside organization is taking our workers. This is a, quote, assault on various companies. He's super anti-union. This is what happens when you have a giant company and a CEO. They might think like, oh, I'm so progressive. It's the classic, what happens with corporations nowadays? They'll, fly a gay flag or say Black Lives Matter, but then they're still ruthless in terms of the pennies and dimes. They're still ruthless when it comes to the bottom line. It's almost like a mask for being economically super right-wing. The idea that he thinks Howard Schultz, he's conflicted because he's progressive, so he's not sure about the union. Maybe he thinks it's a good thing. Nonsense.
As I said, I said it right at the start. It's just an aside comment. It's hard to be virtuous when you're actually a CEO and push comes to shove, and now it really matters because it's your own company.
Oh, now that's true. It's hard to be virtuous when you're the CEO and it's your own company. Seems like there might be a massive flaw in that system. That's not how he thinks, by the way. He thinks it's hard to be virtuous, and that's a good thing. Companies should be ruthless. Thank you, Mr. CNBC douche.
Normally, I think he'd like to come down on the woke side of things, and that would be the union side.
Well, and the union...
The woke side. These guys have one trick and one argument that they repeat in 400 different ways. wokeness is bad, so I guess this is woke. Oh my god. The right has found one thing that really works for them and has really resonated for them, and it's the idea of wokeness. Like, oh my god, these crazy lefties with their pink hair and they're identifying as a rhinoceros. Like, what the fuck? This is crazy. And this represents all the left. And since that line of argument has really stuck with a lot of people, they just use it for everything. It doesn't matter what we're talking about. Living wage for workers? That seems kind of woke. Healthcare for everybody? That's some woke nonsense. Unionization? Why are you being so woke, bro? It's the wet blanket they throw over everything. It has come to mean nothing now, because they just invoke it all the time. Megyn Kelly said the other day, talking about the leak from the Supreme Court that Roe versus Wade was going to be overturned. She said, this has got to be some, like, woke clerk or intern or staffer who released it. So, at a time when we just learned Roe versus Wade is going to be overturned, her take is, wokeness is really bad. Why? Not everything is about wokeness. Not everything is about wokeness. And this is coming from a guy. I get accused by a lot of people who dislike me. They are like, he's the anti-woke left, so he's not a real lefty. I get that a lot. And then from people who like me, they'll say, oh, he's anti-woke. Right? So, but I'm somebody who's critical of wokeness in many respects. Critical of the excesses, I should say, of wokeness. But when it gets to the point where any policy idea, no matter how good it is, no matter how positive it is for workers, they're just like, this is woke. It's clear the trick that you're using. It's so stupid. It's the same trick that they do with cancel culture, right? Where instead of taking an actual example of cancel culture, where somebody loses a job over something they said and they probably shouldn't have lost their job or whatever. Now, if you just fact check somebody because they say something idiotic, they're like, what, you canceling me? Why you canceling me, bro? The cancel culture's coming for me. It's like, no, you're just wrong about something. Jesus Christ. I'm not triggered. You're just a moron. And that's what we see here. Oh my God, this guy, Joe, CNBC, Joe Kiernan again, I think his name is. Trashing woke unions. God, Christian Smalls, let's do the damn thing. Let's regroup. And let's go after it even harder, because cannot give people like this a victory. Hey y'all, do me a favor and like and subscribe. It helps out big time in the algorithm. Click the bell as well for notifications when videos drop. And watch that video on screen right now. You know you want to.